Good morning. Today is Monday, December 14th, 2020, and our I Can for today says, I can find lines of symmetry in objects and shapes. Sometimes we use LOS to show that we're talking about lines of symmetry. So let's make a T-chart to see if we can figure out what are things that have symmetry and what do not. On this side, we're going to have items that have symmetry. And on this side, we're going to have no symmetry. So let's start with an object that has symmetry. I'm going to make a smiley face. We would say that a smiley face has a line of symmetry because I could split it right down the center and it would be exactly the same on both sides. So they call that a line of symmetry. Let's make a piece of cheese pizza. Or it could be a candy corn. It has a line of symmetry because I could split it right down the middle and it would be exactly the same on both sides. I'm going to make an X. It's an intersecting line, right? An X has a line of symmetry right down the center or right across the middle, because either way it's the same on both sides. Let's make a house. My house is going to have no chimney and no door. If that were my house, and pretend my triangle is a little bit neater than that, we would have a line of symmetry right down the middle. So these are examples of objects that have lines of symmetry. Let's do a couple that don't have lines of symmetry. If you've ever seen the North Carolina flag, it looks something like this. That does not have a line of symmetry. If I cut it right here, there'd be a North Carolina on top of a stripe. And if I cut it this way, the N would not work out. So this has no symmetry. Let's draw a fish. If I cut the fish in half, we'd have a tail on a head, or a head on a tail. Or if I split it this way, we'd have an eyeball on his belly. So that does not have a line of symmetry. Let's try a house with a chimney. A house with a chimney has no line of symmetry because if I folded it down the middle, the chimney would be floating in midair. Or if I folded it top to bottom, the triangle would land on top of the square. So these objects have no symmetry. Let's talk about some shapes that have lines of symmetry. Number one, I'm going to start with a square. A square is a special shape. It definitely has a line of symmetry right down the center. We also definitely have a line of symmetry across the center the other way. There's something special about a square. It's only for a square. A square also has lines of symmetry on the diagonals. If I fold a piece of paper on the corners and the paper is perfectly square, it will fold into a nice triangle. So we say that a square has 4 LOS. Do you remember what LOS stands for? 4 lines of symmetry. All right, let's move on to a rectangle. A rectangle is very similar looking to a square. We've got our 4 90-degree angles, we've got perpendicular lines, we have parallel lines. This is a rectangle and it does have lines of symmetry. I could split it right down the center, or I could split it right across the middle. Now the difference between a rectangle and a square is that a rectangle I could not fold this on the diagonal. If I folded it on the diagonal, this corner would end up all the way up here, and there's nothing for it to land on top of. So there are no diagonals. So how many lines of symmetry do you see? 2 lines of symmetry. Good. All right, let's come up with another shape. How about a circle? A circle is one of my favorites. Whenever I think about a circle, I always think about a pizza. And if I decided I was going to share my pizza with Miss Allen, we would split it in half. And there would be half for me and half for her. There's mine, there's hers. But if Mr. Robeson and Miss Green wanted some pizza, we could split it again. Now we have 4 pieces. Everybody gets a piece. It's another line of symmetry. But if someone's little sister and someone's little brother also wanted a piece, I could split it again. It's another line of symmetry. It's the same on that side as it is on this side. And then if your best friend decided that they wanted a piece, we could make more pieces and more pieces. Guess what? I could keep splitting the circle into lines of symmetry. Our pieces would be getting smaller, but they're always lines of symmetry. So a circle is a special rule. A circle has infinite LOS. It means there's not a number. We could always split it one more time. We could always share our pizza piece and make it smaller so that everybody got some. And that would be really friendly of us. Now, I'm going to take my circle and I'm going to squish it and make an oval. And an oval looks more like this. Kind of like an egg. Or a jelly bean. An oval does have lines of symmetry, but not as many as a circle. I could split my oval right down the middle. And both sides match. They're exactly the same on both sides. I could also split it down the center this way. The top and the bottom are exactly the same. But I couldn't split it on the diagonal, the same reason I couldn't split the rectangle. Because when I folded it, it wouldn't match up. And we'll actually try this a little bit later. So we say that an oval has 2 LOS, 2 lines of symmetry. Let's draw a trapezoid. A trapezoid, when I make a trapezoid, look what I'm going to do. I'm going to trace a short line on the blue line, and I'm going to trace a longer line on the bottom blue line. And then I'm just going to connect both of my corners. That's a trapezoid. Well, this trapezoid, and there are several different types we'll talk about a little bit next week, this trapezoid has a line of symmetry. I could split it right here because this side is the same as this side. So they would land right on top of each other and we'd be perfectly fine. This trapezoid has 1 line of symmetry. But not all trapezoids do, so be careful with your trapezoids. All right, 2 more little shapes that we're going to squish in down here. Here's number 6. A pentagon. A pentagon is a 5-sided shape that looks something like this. It's not exactly perfect, but it's pretty close to it. This is a pentagon. It has 5 equal sides and it has 5 equal angles. And what that tells us is, look, I could draw a line right through the middle of my roof, straight down. That makes a line of symmetry. Now, if I turn my notebook, I can go right between the roof and the bottom again. And I could turn my notebook again, and I go between the roof and the floor, and the roof and the floor, and the roof and the floor. And guess what? A pentagon, which is a 5-sided shape, it has 5 equal sides, it has 5 equal angles, it has 5 lines of symmetry. It's called a pentagon. There's a building in Washington, D.C. called the Pentagon. It's in this shape. Now, the last one I want us to write for today is called a hexagon. A hexagon is a 6-sided figure. So it has a top, and it has a bottom, and it goes out and in, and out and in. Again, not perfect, but close. It's pretty good. A hexagon has 6 equal sides and 6 big obtuse angles. So a hexagon has 6 lines of symmetry. And I'll show you how. I could split it right down the center here. I could split it right down the center here, and I could split it right down the center here. But that only gave me 3 lines of symmetry. I could also start at each of the vertices and go on the diagonal right there, and right there. And that's how we prove that a hexagon also has 6 equal sides, 6 equal angles, 6 lines of symmetry. So we're going to do some practice with lines of symmetry for today. Do your best and have a good day.